everyone, welcome. We're back for our second video with Dr. Ricardo White.
Hey guys.
And we're going to be going through the Wholeness Grid. So I hope you have the Wholeness Grid in front of you and printed it off. If you haven't, it's not too late. Go to drricardowhite.com, print it out, check your email, and go through the grid with us.
Exactly. Some of the questions can at times be a little challenging for you to say, hey, what is it really getting at? I'll be able to really kind of coach her through creating value for herself and really being clear about how best to answer the question so that she can then strategize more effectively when it's time to try to achieve better life balance. You ready, Casey?
I'm ready.
As ready as you're gonna be. Let's start with spirituality, for example. So your goal in this area is, I need to figure out where I am with my spirituality so that I can then set some goals. How do you experience your spirituality? Where are you in your spirituality now?
I am in a walk with God in my faith. I'm a Christian. I experience my spirituality through praying, reading my Bible, fellowshipping with others, Bible study.
It sounds like, hey, I'm kind of satisfied with where I am, so now we're going to get even a little bit more concrete. For a lot of faith traditions, meditation or prayer is a component of it. When do you systematically set time to meditate, let's say?
Every morning before bed, just throughout the day. If I'm driving, walking, I will pray. So.
Okay, good. So you're pretty satisfied with how much you do it?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. When we're meditating or when we're praying, like we do a lot of talking, but we don't do any listening.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you have any friends like that who just talk at you and they never listen to you?
I could be like that sometimes.
I
could be like that sometimes.
What are the ways that you listen to the voice of God, let's say?
Just to be quiet. It's good to set up moments where you're just silent. I know some people now call it like mindfulness and it's kind of like a trend, but it is good to be mindful of what God's saying to you, reading your word on the topic that you're praying about, and just really trying to know what God wants from you out of this moment, out of this situation.
How authentic is my conversation with the divine? Would you like me to translate that?
Go ahead, sure.
So, do you keep it real? In a lot of faith traditions, you hear a lot of vows and all this like really flowery speech while people are praying, but the truth is, do you keep it real? Do you talk about the issues that really bother you, that are close to your heart, that kind of thing? So do you keep it real, Casey?
I do. If I'm scared to do something that I hear God telling me to do, I will tell him, I'm scared, please get me through this. So I keep it pretty real.
Right, or sometimes if you get the urge or inclination that God wants you to do something, sometimes you'll just be like, I really don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Great, because with friends that are the most meaningful, we can keep it real. And that's really what we should be striving for in our spiritual relationships.
Okay.
What media am I consuming to feed my spirituality? And by media, we're talking print, we're talking video, we're talking sound. What you expose yourself to impacts your experience spiritually. If you kind of think back to sort of the media and the things that you're exposing yourself to, how do you think it's impacting your spirituality?
I watch a lot of Law and Order, so that impacts my life. Like, I'm always afraid that things are going to happen that are happening in Law and Order in my life. Yeah, just terrible things.
So you're making yourself paranoid, basically.
Yeah, I am, but not, I'm not just like looking over my shoulder all the time. But
Sure.
I mean, it does affect me, so it is something that isn't good, because I don't think God wants you to be afraid. He doesn't want you to be paranoid or anything like that. He wants you to feel secure. Exactly.
Well, when I'm setting my goals, I probably need to see what I can do about maybe reducing my exposure to that particular thing. To really kind of help you get a sense of how much focus you're going to place on your spirituality, if I said 0 is completely dissatisfied and 10 is very satisfied with your spirituality, what number would you give yourself?
Like a 7.
About a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
So pretty satisfied in that area.
Pretty satisfied. Room for improvement, for sure.
Okay.
So what happens after, like, you get all the tally?
You would make strategies. One thing you're going to take a look at in your spiritual relationships is you're going to be like, there's one area I could work on, and that's what I'm exposing myself to. And maybe as opposed to content that's increasing my anxiety and paranoia, maybe I could expose myself to content that actually reduces it, and that's a bit more calming. So let me look at more nature videos, just stuff that really helps me feel grounded. Then we would strategize through. Part of the goal of this work is it can prepare you to more effectively work with a therapist. I think a lot of people are in therapeutic interactions where they don't even know what's the point, or what are we working on. So now this empowers you to go to a therapist and say, hey, I could use some coaching in my spiritual area. And you can say, hey, these are some of the things that I've identified. And you'll see that throughout.
So it's a game plan. It's better to come prepared, you'd say?
To therapy?
Yeah, as a psychiatrist?
Absolutely. One of the best ways to waste your time in therapy is to just show up at the therapist's office and say, I'm here, there's problems, but I just don't know what. What I've found is to make the most out of a consultation, you should really prepare yourself. There are a number of things that people do to reduce how effective therapy is. Showing up late, or not interviewing the therapist, not asking them what's your style, what kind of patients do you like working with, what kind of diagnoses do you like working with. But it's also things like not being sufficiently, revealing, and not directing them to your core issues.
This would better direct therapists to the core issues that are wrong and give them
Absolutely. The
place to
core
start.
issues live in these categories. Your core issues live in these categories. Your core issues will actually, like one way or another, interrupt your vital connections or your ability to connect to these vital things. All right, so this next section, Casey, is incredibly practical. In terms of my resources, what kind of thinking do I need to be doing? So, for example, what are the dreams I have for procuring or getting the following? Education. So what are your goals from an education standpoint?
What do you mean? Like, how do you...
Good. So what this is challenging you to do is say, okay, this is where I am from an educational standpoint. These are the degrees that I've achieved or not achieved. And this is what I do want to achieve. So in terms of where you are from an education standpoint, are you satisfied at this point?
No. I have graduated from undergrad.
Okay.
I'm still working on more schooling and hopefully moving to medical school in the next 2.5 years.
Perfect. So ultimately I want to become a physician. Where are you from a financial standpoint now, and where do you hope to be?
I want to be debt-free 7 years after residency.
There you go.
I want to live very, very well below what I'm making at that time. I don't need extra expenses because I want to be debt-free. So
that's awesome. So you're like, the priority is debt-free. It's not lavish living.
Yeah.
You seem like you're probably more into experiencing things.
Yeah, definitely. I always save for travel, even now.
Travel. There it is. There it is. When we're talking goal setting, one of the things that's so critical to realize is you get to create the future. One of our powers as humans is we can conceptualize a future and then we can create it. You don't even have to always necessarily figure out how you're going to do it, but just start envisioning it. Because the gift of our mind is it will start planning and attracting ideas to fulfill the vision. It's so sad sometimes when I'm working with folk and they are envisioning the status quo. So they're like, okay, well, I want to pay off my debts, maybe over 20 years. Sure, you could do that. Or it might be a goal, actually I want to do it in 5, or maybe even in 1. Obviously, if you had such a big goal, now we're going to have to figure out another way for you actually to achieve that. But the idea being, one of the most liberating things is understanding that the power that we have as humans is the capacity to envision a future and then make it happen. That's when you're living really fully. Whatever you're centering your thoughts on, it's going to be pulling you towards that thing. That's why it's so critical to be visualizing the right things. All right, and so you saw in resources, I have these educational goals. As you get clear on those things, the whole point of the grid and the tool that you really want to accompany the grid is a diary, so that you start writing about this, so that you start visualizing it. Because again, the power of visualization is as you visualize it, you start moving towards it. You start recruiting the power of your thinking and your neurobiology to actually create options and possibilities. And when you're presented with options, you recognize them as a possible connector to that dream more easily. So Casey, in terms of resources, in that category, what rating would you give yourself?
I'd probably give myself like an 8.
So do you have a physical health plan?
I do.
Can you tell me more about that?
I recently changed my diet. I became vegetarian and I dropped a lot of weight just without trying. And I want to build it back, but in muscle. So I don't go to the gym as often as I should, but one of my goals is to gain flexibility to prevent injury and to just feel good and be able to move.
That's awesome.
I stretch every day, so
you're enjoying some gains in that area already, I gather.
yeah,
Oh,
definitely,
that's awesome.
definitely.
What is my dietary plan? You've already got a dietary plan.
Yeah, I'm a very good eater. I love food and I love cooking. I'm like such a foodie.
And the ideal is always that people can't tell that you love food. So.
No, yeah, because I'm so thin, but I eat well and
right.
yeah.
Okay. It's super important to recognize, hey, you only get one body. It's nice to have a nice place, and so it's certainly nice to be living in a great body.
Yeah.
And so you want to make that investment. You want to have a physical, plan. You want to set some goals. I love that you said, hey, I want to be more flexible, and I want to have this amount of muscle. That's fantastic. And then so many people miss that your food really is your medicine, or it's your poison. And so I love that you're assessing your food, because when we talk about junk food, all junk food means is there are these vital chemical reactions that are keeping us alive. These processes require nutrients. That food is not going to provide all the nutrients needed to keep those reactions going. And a lot of times it actually just interferes with those reactions. But your goal is to eat those foods that keep life-sustaining chemical reactions robust and doing exactly what they're supposed to. For example, we have a chemical reaction that repairs our DNA. What happens with cancer is a lot of times it's faulty DNA that didn't get repaired. And now you've got a cell that's growing out of control. I want that reaction as resourced as possible, so that my DNA is constantly being corrected the way it should be.
There's people at my church who were diagnosed with cancer, and changing their diet gave them a good, healthy bill.
Amazing.
No more cancer, didn't have to go through chemotherapy, and it all just had to do with their diet.
Amazing. Some of the resources that you would look at in this area are things like Forks Over Knives. They have some good data in there. And then also Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. That was a documentary series. By the way, there's Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead 1 and 2. Super, super helpful content. But then, of course, don't forget your checkups. Here it is. I'm approaching, dare I say it, 50. I can't believe it. But I'm hitting those ages where it's critical for you to go into the doctors and get those appointments. And so got to be diligent about doing those things. What would you give yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? 0, I'm not happy with my plan. 10, I'm really happy.
9.
All right. How intentional am I about optimizing my emotional IQ? Do you know what that means?
Yes, I'm very intentional about optimizing my emotional IQ.
What is an emotional IQ?
How well you can recognize your own emotions and other people's emotions, and how you live your life interacting with those emotions.
It's really knowing the appropriate behaviors for the appropriate situation. It's things like empathy. So IQ will get you into the room, it'll qualify you for the job. EQ is what keeps you on the job, and what helps you to progress even higher. To progress, it requires putting up with so much nonsense and navigating political channels and just understanding when to speak, when not to speak, patience. How intelligently do you manage your emotions? When you say, hey, I do a lot for my EQ, that means you're probably reading books, you're reading about self-help, you're getting therapy.
I'm definitely trying to attend to my emotional IQ. It deals with your relationships with everyone. So it's something I'm actively trying to better myself in by reading books, even just gaining insight from others.
What would you give yourself as far as how satisfied you are with your level of emotional intelligence?
Probably like a 4.
About a 4.
Yeah.
So you feel like there's more work to do in that
A
area.
lot more work to be done. But when it comes to like behaviors and like common sense and like keeping a certain like demeanor, like decorum, that's fine. It's like maintaining meaningful relationships and understanding emotions and how those emotions work and what to expect from others and how to process it. So that's why I really need a lot of help in that area.
Hey, well, isn't it awesome that you're intentional about saying, okay, this is an area I want to work in? Okay, great. Now, purpose. Purpose. So here is a big one. If I were to ask you, what is your purpose? What would you say?
To live for God and do whatever will He has for me. I think I'm in the right direction, and I'm just still constantly, like, every step waiting to hear from God to make sure, like, I'm on the right path, because I don't want to just do something that I want to do without it being what I'm supposed to do, and waste time and waste happiness and interfere with my spirituality.
That's amazing that you have, identified that. When I ask a majority of people, what is your purpose? What do you think they say?
I'm not sure. Maybe they don't know.
They'll say, hey, I have no idea. That's one. What I'll get from people a lot is they'll say, for example, my family. I live for my family.
I see. And that's problematic, I'm sure, if you're
Now, why is that problematic?
Because they're not prioritizing. I mean, as a Christian, it's problematic to say you're living for someone or something other than God.
It's a noble statement to say, hey, I'm living for someone else. Because what they're really saying is, I'm ready to sacrifice for this person, and they're more important than me. And in a lot of ways, it's a beautiful statement. We live on a planet with this incredible level of uncertainty. And that person who makes that statement is vulnerable to a phone call. A phone call that something tragic has taken place, the unimaginable. And that moment going forward, that person's purpose is now in question.
Your purpose needs to be rooted in something that cannot be taken away.
Yeah. So you can see why it's a noble purpose, but nevertheless it makes you kind of vulnerable. And that's why you get a lot of people who, when those tragedies happen, they have no idea what to do because that's what they were living for. As beautiful a thing as it is. You've kind of jumped ahead and you've recognized, dude, I gotta put it up there. I gotta put my purpose in a place where it can't be taken away in a sense. So that's an important discussion, to have. Again, this is the kind of stuff that you're going to be journaling on. And hey, what is my purpose? What is it that I'm living for? Is that something safe to live for? Or could that be taken away from me in a moment? Again, that's why it's like a good therapist or a good coach. You can wrestle with this stuff with them. Because I'd hate to just say, hey, let me tell you, this is how you're supposed to be thinking. But at least this can awaken you to, I never really considered that. Or, yeah, I can't front. Part of the difficulty I'm having is something I was living for has been taken away from me. And that's exactly the problem I'm having now. So now the Christian is challenged to put their faith in God. You're disciplining yourself to have this trust that what God has allowed, it's not like He's done it, but what He has allowed, He will be with you as you get through it. What we're accustomed to is if you are relating to me, then I can feel it. And that's not how it always is spiritually. God can be present and you not feel it. God can be active in your life and you not perceive it. This issue of purpose is a big one. It's an area that I've really spent quite a bit of time. And I've put together this presentation called The 3 Dimensions of Purpose. One of the clues about your purpose is your talent. What's your talent?
I can inspire people.
Powerful. That's really awesome.
I'm really good at organizing other people's houses too.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
No.
We could make use of that, Casey. No, so it's one thing to have the talent, but you're also responsible to distill the talent into skill.
But what about when your talent is something you hate to do? Like, what if you're talented at something that is not your purpose?
Give me an example of that.
I'm really good at writing. I've won awards from my university, like, best essay. Tried it. Did an internship as a journalist, intern at the UN. Hate journalistic writing, but I'm good at it. And I don't think it's my purpose. And I've tried to pursue it.
What you find is there are no wasted talents. When you're really good at something, that means there's probably a measure where there's some love there, but you're in the wrong situation.
I hated journalism because I hate being told what to do about what I write. By the time I get it back to me, it's like not really what I wrote. Yeah. I hate losing myself in like my writing.
That's a far cry from not liking writing.
Yeah.
You hated the situations.
Yeah.
But the bottom line being there's no wasted talent. It just means that using it in that vein is probably that's not your calling more than likely. And so you have something else. But the interesting and the really validating thing is you probably will be able to use even that talent you despise in another way. Now, all the physicians out there know this girl is going to be writing a lot.
So it'll help me, my talents.
Absolutely.
But in a different arena.
Vein.
Yeah.
In a different vein. So I can imagine when I get your report or when I get your
it's gonna be so detailed.
It's like, oh my goodness.
Did you ever want to do something else or was talented in something but tried it in a different setting?
A lot of people were shocked that I became a physician and didn't become a theologian. I have some talent for speaking, but talent is interacting with people and helping people fulfill something they're passionate about, or awakening passion, or helping a person recover from an emotional injury. That's exciting to me. But the theme of what we were talking about for your listeners, though, Casey, is don't just leave it at the level of raw talent. Develop it. So as far as purpose, how do you feel about your connection to purpose? How satisfied are you with purpose?
I wish I had more direction in what to do. Like, I wish if God would just speak to me and say, this is how you should do it, this is what you're going to do, and outline it, then I would just do it. At least I would think I would. But it's not that easy. It's time and it's trusting God. So I wish, I don't know, I'm not that satisfied because I'm in the dark. I'm in the dark a lot.
What number would you give yourself? So 0 is horrible.
Like a 5.
A 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so definitely an area hey, I gotta give this, more energy. So Casey, great job.
Okay.
Thank you for the questions and just being so forthcoming with your answers. Man, you are revealing. But that really is going to help us to really strategize effectively when we start taking a look at, hey, what are the areas that really she should focus some attention on, and what are the tools that we can use to guide our goal setting. Okay?
So we left out a huge section, right?
Because we plan on devoting attention to that specifically.
Okay.
And that's the relationship section.
Okay.
We're going to talk to her about her romantic relationships. This is awesome. So you guys stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned. Thanks again for spending time going through the Wholeness Grid. And my audience will see you for the next video when we talk about relationships. Right?
Thanks for having me.